back to the studio.
Chuck, thank you for that. As you may or may not know, former Charlotte Mayor Patrick Cannon could be sentenced as early as next week. He was arrested back in March, pled guilty to bribery, among other charges. And we're going to chat about that legal side of things on that drama and other things as well. Fox 46 legal analysts Corey Rosensteel and Matt Fleischman are here.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We will chat about national issues in just a minute. We're going to talk about Ferguson, but let's keep it local first here. As we said, former Mayor Patrick Cannon is going to be sentenced next week. So talk to us a little bit about how the sentencing phase works.
Well, so after a person has pled guilty, they schedule a sentencing. And obviously, in this case, the sentencing has been a couple months after they've arranged for a guilty plea. And what the government does is the government then creates a report on an individual, and that report talks about things like prior criminal record, other aggravating factors. It also talks about parts of the offense. So, for instance, in a drug offense, somebody might have a more enhanced sentence because there was a larger weight of drugs, a larger amount of drugs. In this case, money may be an issue. The amount of the bribe, what they can prove about that. And so in a case like this, what that report will do is it will talk about some of the positives and negatives. What they do at the end of that report is they come up with a numerical value. And that numerical value then corresponds to the sentencing chart. And so there's a grid that the judge refers to. And this is the recommended sentence. And so when we hear that the mayor may be eligible for 63 to 78 months, what we're talking about is there's a box on the grid that says 63 to 78 months. And so when the judge takes a look at that, what the judge has to do is take that into account, but also some of the exterior factors that a judge might want to consider. One of the big things that we always talk about is substantial assistance in this case. And that's a legal term, but what it really means is cooperating with the government could get you a better sentence.
And he has.
And as far as we know, he has. Now,
right.
That's up to the prosecution to make a motion for that particular type of downward departure. And when we talk about departures, we're talking about when a judge goes outside that grid and says, I think a lower sentence is in order here, or a higher sentence. In this particular case, the higher sentence could be an issue because of the betrayal of public trust. And that could be something that a judge takes a look at and says, this warrants a more stiff sentence. And of course, the downward departure that the mayor appears to be working on, and we don't know exactly what the details are, but substantial assistance, which is cooperation with other people who they may be investigating.
And let's talk about Ferguson, Matt, to this as far as a lawsuit against the police there by the Brown family, Brown estate. How do you see that playing out here?
Well, it's early to say at this point. That being said, I get a lot of calls about these types of cases from individuals, and they always want to know whether they can bring a case against a police officer for acts of the police officer, usually for excessive force, which is at least what we see possibly in this case. These cases are extremely difficult to bring for a number of reasons. There is a lot of constitutional protection against bringing cases against the police. There are a lot of governmental immunities that you have to get over to actually bring a claim, and then to be successful in a claim is also very difficult. So at this point, I would say it's very early to tell, but I would be shocked if a claim is not brought. So we'll have to see what the evidence bears out of this
What
case.
kind of claim could you get, money-wise? What would you be looking at?
Well, you'd be bringing a wrongful death claim because you have the death of an individual. Now, as far as the specifics of the claim, obviously, there's no way for me to know at this point because I don't have all the evidence. That being said, typically, the life cycle of this is you get all of the evidence in, you'd have your own investigation, an autopsy obviously has been performed, that's national news. And then you would take a look at the officer themselves. There's actually two claims that you would bring, one against the officer individually and then one against the city government. The officer you can bring, but typically the officer does not have the actual money personally to pay up on any type of a judgment. So really what you're looking at is against the city governments. There are a lot of immunities to try to get money from a government, so it makes things actually very difficult. But again, if you can get over those hurdles, you'd be bringing a claim for the loss of the life of the individual, plus loss of potential monies that the individual could have brought in over their lifetime to support their family.
All right, Corey Rosensteel and Matt Fleischman, thank you for joining us today, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. On the way here on this Thursday,